The command headquarters room was filled with smoke, but no one cared, because all eyes were focused on Tu Lang's strange appearance. Chu Tiu Hong watched with wide eyes, unable to believe that a human girl could transform into this form. Zhang Si, the author of the work, looked on and indulged, while Hu Hu held the brown-haired girl's neck with one hand. The other hand comfortably dropped to her side, looking in that direction, smiling happily. This made Chu Tiu Hong feel insulted. She muttered once and then again. Tu Lang joked yesterday, full of sarcasm. Are you complaining about life? I think we don't need to talk anymore. Tiu Hong was so angry. She threw her hand away, causing her blood to flow out and condense into a sharp sword. Grabbing it, the white-haired girl soared up and flipped around in a beautiful circle, preparing to land on Tu Lang. Tu Lang's hand was already holding the hilt of the sword, ready, so the two women looked at each other. At this moment there was only fighting and killing. You're right, only weak people talk a lot. Finishing his sentence, Chu Tiu Hong slashed the wound straight down. Tu Lang did not rush to block, but used his right palm to tightly grasp the tip of the sword, causing it to be covered in blood. She lowered her center of gravity and began to open the ring. Using the red ring skillfully, when she swept it, it landed exactly in the middle of Chu Tiu Hong's face. All the brown hair saw was just the shadow of her queen passing by right as Tu Lang slashed down extremely accurately. On the surface, it looked like there was only one slash, but in reality she performed hundreds of slashes at the same time. Each path is so delicate that it cuts into the cells of the blood clan, causing them to burst and shatter. Behind Tu Lang's back was a blood-colored firework, blooming. The thing that shot out made people's hair shiver. The crowd was startled and confused, and the brown-haired girl was already crying. Your Majesty, without even turning his head to look at the rain of blood he had just created. Tu Lang just brought his sword back close to his waist, ignoring the blood staining the ground. Tu Fong, his subordinate's supervisor, reported, Team leader Tu Lang has already shredded her cells. How could something like that happen? The mechanical life group leader didn't believe it, and Lan KY didn't believe it either. But she couldn't find any words to object to what had just happened. The minister was more silent than usual, as if he was waiting for developments. But the truth is that this battle is not over yet. When Tu Lang turned around he clearly heard a challenging voice spreading into the air. Quote, "You're not that chicken, are you planning on sneaking in?" It turned out that the hemoglobin cells had created new genetic chains, gathering all the pieces of blood that had been splashed out earlier. Even the drops of dark red blood falling to the ground right under Tu Lang's feet were summoned back up, gradually turning from drops of blood into streams of dark red blood gathering in a single place. After the cells appeared, bones and muscles continued to form. Gradually the whole body appeared again in front of Tu Lang. It's still the same white hair, only now she's naked and has nothing to cover her body. Having said that, none of the powerful people even looked at Chu Tiu Hong's relatives. Everyone wondered if these two women were still human. For some reason, Jiang Tu looked in that direction and suddenly commented, Chu Tiu Hong is about to explode. Let's change to another place to observe. He launched first. Tiu Hak launched later, creating two black streaks on the roof of the building and flying away. That unsophisticated guy said you were a monster more than 1,000 years ago. As expected, you can't be described with common sense. Tu Lang didn't know that the other guy had run away yet. But the minister who had been observing had discovered it, so he wanted to chase him. Unexpectedly, the golden glove suddenly reacted, making him look at it with shock and disbelief. Lan KY saw his shadow passing by and screamed loudly. Hey, that bastard Jiang Tu. Jiang Tu didn't slow down at all, waving his hand for everyone to leave here quickly. It was very dangerous. Chu Tiu Hong took the clothes and put them on. But Tu Lang kept seeing that there was something strange about her expression, and he didn't bother to reason with her like before. When Uncle Tiu Hong's left arm raised, the clear blue sky above her head suddenly turned black, swirling like a storm was preparing to rush in. Its area became larger and larger, to the point where the light could no longer clearly reveal Chu Tiu Hong's facial expression. She glanced at it with hatred. Not done yet. Okay. Tu Lang immediately lowered his body to prepare for a decisive battle. In short, the two women were preparing to fight. Jiang Tu, after leading his disciple to a safe place, saw Lan Ky near him with the leader of the sick group following closely. Tu Lang jumped into the sky, just barely escaping the attack. Zhou Xiaohong's extremely decisive statement. Just like the group leader's swordsmanship ability, Chu Tiu Hong's one move, seen with the naked eye, was actually dozens of moves overlapping each other, quickly cutting the building into pieces that were no different from a piece of soft tofu. Tu Lang rushed back right before the building collapsed. She rushed through the slight gap in the two walls to confront Chu Tiu Hong, who was using a sword made of blood on the other side. This time, the white-haired girl quickly slapped Tu Lang's cheek, gritted her teeth, raised her sword, and slashed down again without losing much of her previous power. The audience looked at it with tears in their eyes, and Jiang Tu also had to burst into excitement. Because Tu Lang's slash not only cut off the building, but she also divided the whole city. The ground rumbled loudly following Tu Lang's cut, almost cutting through the white-haired girl. She circled around in the air. When she turned around and saw that she had escaped, she frowned in frustration, realizing how terrible her move was. Lan Ky glanced at Jiang Tu's stupid face and then looked up at the sky. It was so hard to believe. He wasn't dead yet. While everyone was paying attention to the battle between the two midwives up there, the minister grabbed his arm and twisted it incomprehensibly. What's going on? Why can't I take off my gloves? A streak of light clinging to the glass building not far away was Tu Lang, looking no different from three spiders. Both of her feet hadn't touched the glass surface for a few seconds when she saw Chu Tiu Hong's figure chasing her. Using her bare foot, she kicked Tu Lang straight up from under his chin, shouting loudly, "The second form couldn't do anything to me." In that shot, she gained momentum and rushed back towards her opponent, with her hands now full of blood flying everywhere, slapping hard in front, but there were no opponents. So the academy people decided not to blink eyes to see the situation clearly. Unexpectedly, at such a distance, Chu Tiu Hong could pull Tu Lang's body off the glass of the building, then push her back, with the sword stuck in her abdomen. A very high-quality stab made Chu Tiu Hong pause for a few seconds to see the situation. Lan Ky saw his arch-rival being filled with onions, and at this moment he could only open his eyes and not be able to comment. Don't tell me Tu Lang is dead. The space fell silent as everyone watched Tu Lang's every breath. Only this minister was the only one who didn't know where he was bitten by ants but kept coming up this row continuously. What's wrong with these gloves? He roared loudly, both frustrated and annoyed. Then suddenly heard someone's voice whispering into every cell of him. Let me borrow your body. The sight of the yellow glove emitted thunderbolts that gradually swallowed him. And the minister realized something was wrong. He looked around questioningly. Who are you? But it was impossible to stop the invasion that was gradually eating away at him. The other person's loud voice said that he was an ancient person, only causing the minister to be confused. Tu Lang had her own sword pinned to the glass of the building, looking like a beaten cockroach. But a moment later she bent over, grabbed the blade and pulled it out, chatting with her opponent. I said, "You're right. I can't do anything to you." Using force to pull the sword out of her waist, Tu Lang stood up as if nothing had happened. She rushed out of the building. Find a comfortable place to put the sword down. Show off your body that doesn't want to be exposed to Chu Tiu Hong. I can't do anything to you. But you can't do anything to me. Right? Jiang Tu just stood there watching but was shaken by Lan Ky until he reached the vestibule. I want it too. Me too. Don't think I don't know what you did to Tu Lang. Of course he knew, but he only calmly said a single sentence out of his mouth. Don't. It's too violent. Something happened again. In the middle of the city center there was a loud explosion. And when Jiang Tu looking over in surprise, Tu Lang discovered the presence of a stranger's aura. Chu Tiu Hong watched with alert eyes, but no one here had an answer. What was that thing that just appeared? Or more precisely, what was that sound? What the hell was that? A giant foot with an equally giant hand reached from the sky to the continent below, creating a shadow so huge that it was indescribable. Ha ha ha, I'm alive again. In the air echoed the laughter of an ancient person. That person stomped his terrifyingly large foot on the Earth's continent and then cast his shadow several kilometers long onto the national road. Because of an arbitrary step, the traffic was stuck. People stuck their heads out to curse and curse. Suddenly, they saw the sky was dark. And when they looked up, they saw the center of Guangzhou City in the distance was beaten to pieces. Jiang-tu and Lan Ky were like two ants flying among the debris. He stood firmly on several large rocks and quickly realized he had work to do. Without saying a word, Jiang-tu rushed over the rocks to reach the place where the fake supervillains were being blown away. With one hand he held this person. The other grabbed the other person. Then threw everyone out of danger, while he himself kept running on the pile of rubble that was being thrown everywhere. At that moment, that giant hand aimed at Jiang-tu and was about to tighten. The action of catching him was no different from catching a mosquito. Only when looking from outside the earth can one see the entire terrifyingly tall appearance. Using the phrase skyscraper, it is impossible to express the full height of this guy. His target was Jiang-tu. Shu Tiuhong slid all the way and Tu Lang on the opposite side was still safe. In that strange name's head, the minister's scream rang out. You, what do you want to do? The ancient person in the new body apologized but was not sincere in it. Sorry for taking advantage of you, Junior. For humanity your sacrifice is very valuable. Seen from the giant's perspective, the humans were no different from a bunch of ants sitting on a cake. This level was so far beyond Mak Hung's understanding that even the group leaders of other supernatural academies didn't know what to say. In front of them now was a supergiant in golden armor like a highly evolved cicada. Moreover, it also has a golden ring on the outside. Could it be said that the cicadas have been transformed into Buddhas or something? The crowd didn't know what it was. Tu Lang didn't know what it was either. But they knew that between the giant's two clasped fingers was Jiang-tu's figure. A plane flew by looking for an emergency escape route, accidentally letting the passengers see this scene, which is definitely a memory they will never forget in their lives. Jiang Si braced himself against the two fingers that wanted to crush him, and it was clear that he was suffering from a size difference. On the left is Chu Tiuhong. On the right is Tu Lang, rushing up with two long legs preparing to hit the giant directly. Yet despite their very fast speed, the two girls could only hit the protective curtain of that strange name. With a whooshing sound, out of thin air, he saw a bright, golden rope tightly holding Tu Lang and placing it on the left. Then that rope grew another bright yellow rope, taking Shu Tiuhong and placing it on the right. The other person's voice was loud and full of challenge. Less intimidating than human. We have been studying Jiang Si's genes for centuries. Yet these two women used it as a stimulant and attacked me? It's really shallow. Looking again at the little guy who was bracing himself to support two fingers, the ancient man somehow still had a happy smile on his face at this moment. Jiang Si's body at this time was like a pinwheel. He rotated 360 degrees more than 100 times in a row, causing the giant's index finger holding him to twist thousands of times. In an instant, from the index finger to the whole huge arm, Jiang Si twisted it into an inconceivable pile. Only then did the giant begin to realize that Jiang Si could counterattack. He took the opportunity to jump up from the hand that was twisting the bowl. Still with that happy smile, the young man sprinted closer and closer to the giant's shoulder. Bang! Using the other arm of the ancient man, he smashed straight down where Jiang-tu had just run past like hitting a turtle. Thinking he had killed him, he spread his arms and proudly declared, I have finally waited for 1,000 years. Chu Tiuhong hummed in protest, while Tu Lang on the other side said nothing, saying he just wanted to see if Jiang-tu had killed him or not. But he didn't die. Using the 800-year-old zombie skeleton, Jiang-tu just lifted up the hand that had just hit him. Then let out a gleeful Smile below. As if mocking that big guy. Come on. The second battle. What are you waiting for? Come on in. Reveal your true nature. The giant challenged as if he knew he couldn't beat Zhang Si to death. Just now. But as expected, he didn't need to invite him to do anything. The characteristic dark eyes of the second form have appeared. I don't know what Zhang Si was thinking. But he suddenly stopped being sandwiched between the ancient man's two fingers. He used his strength to blow his arm away. That out. Chu Tiu Hong hummed a few times, not knowing what he was trying to say, seemingly warning that the ancient man's remaining arm was about to pat Zhang Tu. Are you looking down on me? He roared and cursed him as a damn monster. But Zhang Si's eyes looked at the other person without the slightest fear. At this time, Lan Ky began to see that the battle was about to get exciting or something. Jiang Tu did not say a word and accelerated straight ahead as if preparing to counterattack. To the ancients, these tricks of his were like an ant trying to fight an elephant. The sound of clicking and clicking echoed continuously. Then from an ancient figure suddenly there were nearly 10 identical bodies just in different colors, standing a distance apart, mainly to surround Zhang Tu. Is this ancient science and technology? Mak Hong remained silent. Why'd I feel so backward? Zhang Si's eyes showed no signs of confusion. He jumped through the crowd of identical ancient people. All bodies were given a punch or kick by Zhang Si, or they were torn in half with both hands. The arrogant ancient man of course did not let Zhang Si go easily. He roared, "It's not over yet." But on the other side, he had already finished this retaliation. As soon as his arm punched straight, he saw the ancient man's body flying into pieces. But he still couldn't hit his original form. So he was still twisting his mouth to show how formidable he was. Still can't force you to give it your all. Do you still look down on me or something? Dozens of identical ancient people emerged from certain corners one after another, stomping on the Earth's continent. The audience watched and screamed. It's so worth it. If they tread like that. What is the land where they live? While stomping and twisting his feet down to catch Zhang Si, the ancient man muttered, I have witnessed the last night before dawn. Jiang Tu doesn't understand what this guy is talking about. He was floating in the air, easily escaping the trample of that guy. Chu Tiu Hong's eyes widened as if swallowing every word of the ancient man. He roared like thunder resounding throughout the area. This is not your true form. Before he finished speaking, his fist swung forward, aimed straight at the ant Zhang Tu floating in the air and gave him a solid punch. Although I don't know how Zhang Si suffered, the surrounding people and the people on Earth were forced to the point where they were about to become rice paper. Winds raged across the cities. Vehicles flew everywhere, all because the road blew Zhang Si away. And the ancient people were already standing on the continent. So where else could they go to fight Zhang Si other than another planet? He collided with the unlucky moon nearby, rolled around a few more times, then exploded, sitting up under a pile of rubble, glaring at the person who had just hit him. Seeing his unhappy look, the minister cursed unhappily in the ancient man's head. Look at your masterpiece. Are you determined to destroy it? He didn't listen to a word I screamed back. Shut up. I have to destroy it. Having said that, the whole person jumped out of the earth following everyone's gaze. He was clearly aiming for the moon, then placed his large body on top of it as if holding a sphere. The ancient man on earth was already huge in size, but when he set foot on the moon, the difference in size was even more apparent. But a bright green object slipped out of his fingers. While the ancient man was screaming madly, Zhang Si had to disappear from the earth. He jumped up and ran across the surface of the moon, then rushed back up to the giant's arm in just a split second. Such a distance that Zhang Si crossed in just a few seconds. The industrial chickens on Earth could only use glasses to follow. But at this distance there was no way to intervene. He turned 180 degrees. His fist was ready, and so he kicked straight into the armor of the ancient man, causing him to fall down, unable to move, but it turned out to be just a clone of the ancient man. Only ancient people. At this time, he was floating in the Earth's atmosphere and heard the minister say, I read the documents about him. After he became the group leader, he was not as evil as you said. The city he management is better than the city that we humans manage. Not only does it pay taxes for us, but it also develops in a better direction. But Jiangxi never harms people. And also helps us many times. Why can't we live together? Just hearing that idea, the ancient man shouted loudly, held his mouth, looked at the huge figure falling on the surface of the moon. In the voice of the ancient man there was a clear voice. Why don't you want to live together in peace? But looking at his appearance, everyone knows how great power this second form can bring to Jiangxi. Moreover, on his face there was a smile of someone who has power and knows he can overwhelm others. How can we live together in peace? On the moon, the ancient grandfather emitted thunderous thunderstorms. Originally, zombies were just a weak tribe. Our ordinary bombers could destroy them. But I don't know where this guy came from. Our life and death depend on his sad and happy moods. So we don't allow such a creature to exist. He raised his arm high and heard a loud rustling sound. To the shock of everyone watching, each piece of the golden armor was covered with a layer of bright engraved yellow color. If you are from a different clan, you must kill them. That is the current saying of the ancients. God of punishment. The next form of ancient people has clearly appeared. It looked more powerful, but following the flight path of the ancients, countless clones appeared at the same time, stabbing their giant swords into the moon's surface. The 7 giants pierced their 7 swords through the center of the moon. Then unleashed a thunder attack with the highest intensity to burn Jiangxi to death in just a moment. Even though he threw himself up high to avoid it, Jiang too was stuck. His whole body twitched. Then he lowered his head and landed on the ground below, still with half-length hair on his nape and dark circles under his eyes. High school students stay up late playing games. Suddenly, Jiang Tu spoke up again. Sometimes the bigger you are, the stronger you will be. That was a statement to the ancient moon. He didn't know. He could only stare at Jiangxi without saying another word. He simply raised his hand and flicked it, and saw some force horrifyingly flattened the ancient man's huge body behind him. His hardest piece of armor was immediately washed away like a flood. Only scattered in the air were the crushed pieces of ancient people. Because of that force, the moon also made a heavy rumbling sound. It almost deviated from its original orbit, exerting a terrible force on the poor people below the earth. This place is no longer safe. Group leaders, please evacuate the people together. They are scattered everywhere, divided to act. But on Earth, nowhere is affected by the moon's magnetic field. The other 2 people didn't care about worldly affairs. They were fighting outside the Earth's atmosphere. Jiangxi now only aims at the ancient original and hits it with his fist. He lost momentum. His whole body staggered and fell into the deep sea of the Earth with a loud crash, sending waves up to tens of kilometers that could be clearly seen from above. Jiang Tu landed on a land not far away. He bent down and used both hands to push 2 pieces of land in opposite directions. While the ancient man was bending under the deep seawater, trying to turn around, return to the upper surface, each group leader flew back to the city, trying to move the incapacitated people out of the danger zone as quickly as possible. While holding a child and running away with the residents of Guangzhou City, Lan Ky suddenly realized that the ground under her feet seemed to have something different. Not different, but it was completely open, making her startled. Jiangxi, in the distance, used his hands to separate the continent like a piece of rice paper, involving the people in the faraway city of Guangzhou. They ran for their lives. But everyone could recognize the extremely terrible change. Terrible on the surface of the earth. Because Jiangxi used his hands to separate it, he also wanted to push the 2 landmasses far apart. The intense tremors made those who couldn't see it think it was a level 20 earthquake. One chasm just like that had 2 goals. Jiang Tu's hands opened wide. He laughed happily, as if destroying the Earth's surface was something fun. Only when the 2 continental plates were separated by tens of kilometers away did the humans realize. But it was too late. Lan Ky could not escape. Her whole body fell into that canyon. It was unclear how long it stretched and no one knew how deep its bottom was. Looking down, she only saw pitch black. Luckily, Trongnan's group nearby caught her hand. While grabbing Lan Ky, he cursed Dong. Could a carbon creature do this? What he was talking about was not simply opening a crack. That crack also ran along the length of the Earth from the East Pole to the West Pole, almost splitting the entire Earth into two halves. While pulling Lan Ky, he encouraged her to try harder. But on the other side there was something that was attracting the girl's eyes. That is, it was the name of the ancient person who fell into the abyss after falling into the abyss after falling into the abyss. The continent was separated by Jiangsu, and seawater rushed down below. That's all he waited for. He jumped up with his fist straight into his stomach, hearing a clear rumbling sound. The battlefield of the two people now had to retreat to the mountains far away so as not to involve humans. Again, leaning against a mountain peak, the ancient man coughed. The armor on his face was gradually breaking, but his smile was still clearly heard. Junior, have you seen? This is his destructive power. But that was not the end. On the waves tens of meters high in the ocean far away, Zhang Tu appeared with a completely different form, looking like he had just grown from a high school student to a new form. The form of a complete young man. The long hair flowing in the wind was pitch black, along with the cold expression that made ancient people panic. What kind of creature is this guy? Amid the chaos of the earth, Tu Lang found himself a lifeboat, which was an overturned car, and climbed up to observe the battle situation in the distance. Chu Tiu Hong had never seen him like this before. His mouth opened wide in disbelief. Was this Zhang Si? The ancient man also had the same question. But he silently assessed himself. Then suddenly, burst into choking laughter. Yes, it was this face. Before dawn disappeared, I saw this face. Jiang Tu rushed up to find a dry place to stand, looking at the rushing seawater below created by his single hand. In the distance, Tiu Hak saw the figure of his great king. His face turned pale. His face was normally white, but now it was even paler. Without saying a word, Tiu Hak quickly left the battlefield first. This ancient man was already dead. Why stay? Let's run away. Yet he didn't know. He was still roaring with thunder in mid-air. Ha ha ha. Fighting all day long. Finally waiting for this moment. Junior, your solid body must be at a disadvantage. When switching to this form, it seemed that Jiang Tu was even quieter than before. Still one arm raised, but it felt incomprehensibly slow. Before the two fingers touched each other, the armor on the ancient man's body was simply broken by some terrible force. When Zhang Si's fist tightened, his whole body was twisted into a ball, like chewing gum that had been chewed to death and then balled up. Right where the ancient man stood, a loud explosion rang out. Continuously, the beam of light illuminating his whole body was corroding every piece of armor on his body. Ignoring his pitiful screams. Why is this happening? I am already so strong but still can't defeat him. What about him? In just a moment, the ancient man's strangely large body disappeared completely, leaving the minister with a hole in his abdomen. The group of superhumans looked at the person they admired as if their feet were dying. Everyone had tears in their eyes, crying for the minister. His feet were cold this time. Tiu Hak of course did not dare to stop Zhang Tu, but in his heart he secretly lamented that it was not good. The great king could not kill the human minister. Under the light of a new day, Zhang Tu's strong arm snapped again, and the minister's DNA chain was immediately returned to him. From there, muscle tissue and blood were created inside his shock hole, which swirled continuously while he was falling to the ground. As he shook his index finger, within just a few seconds, the minister's deep chest was woven into a pounding heart. From there, it creates muscle and tissue blocks like regenerating from scratch. Never in my life have I seen anything as strange as this. The crowd could only scream in panic. At this time, Chu Tiu Hong and the director could only hide from afar and monitor the situation. There are so many things that Tu Lang doesn't know about this zombie. Even the minister whose body was patched up by Zhang Tu still can't believe it. He rolled his eyes and looked at that extremely indifferent-looking guy, snorting unwillingly. But in the end, his life was saved by him. As the human minister was falling, he gradually understood why. Why did ancient humans have to spend all their effort to destroy this guy Zhang Tu? Because of fear and nothing more. His demeanor makes anyone unable to eat or sleep well. So the battle ended in victory, of course, in favor of Zhang Tu. The group of people on the roof watched for a while, suddenly feeling more dazed than ever. The group of people flew past the cars floating in the sea of water. Tu Lang still kept his second form and landed in front of him. I must have had a lot to say because I came here in such a hurry. But Zhang Tu has already transformed back into his normal, lowly zombie form. Scratching his head, he smiled and asked, Tu Lang, is his bloodline strength good? The bony layer on her face melted away like a bubble. Tu Lang intended to speak calmly to him, but she couldn't take it anymore, so she screamed straight at Jiang Tu. Thanks to your blessing, our house is gone. Why didn't you say earlier that you could handle him yourself? Why spend so much effort? Now look, that crack has divided the continent into an endless plain. He scratched his head and said yes. I'm afraid of scaring other people, but do the people he's threatening really need him to threaten? Chu Tiu Hong hid behind a large rock with the leader, hoping no one would detect any breath in this place. This event caused the southern mainland to be moved 130 kilometers. It also had a certain impact on the Earth's climate, and indirectly created the deepest sea hole. 2 months later, because humanity had been evacuated before the battle, there was no heavy damage. But some cities were completely destroyed. Everything will be rebuilt by the Jiangxi Architects Association. Sitting alone on a high floor is the minister looking at information about Jiangsu. Except for the original zombie-like appearance, he now knows he has 3 forms. After knowing why ancient humans wanted to destroy Jiangxi, when the minister faced this terrible power, he had to make a choice about what he would do. A moment later, Supervisor Tran brought a cup of tea and asked, Minister, did you call me? Looking out the window, he said, Miss, go to the supermarket and buy a few bags of eggs for me. I want to visit the mayor of City H who just took office. In another development, where the building had a huge sign hanging on it, the blood-sucking demon city phase 2 project, was the angry voice of the director. Come on, I'm spending money to tax you, not for you to be lazy. The girl with brown hair, her face bruised, glanced at her brother with a defiant look. Where did you get the money? The leader doesn't want to mention this, but in fact, many people know where his money comes from. Tiu Hak enjoyed another beautiful day. When someone behind him asked Tiu Hak, those people are not our enemies. Why did we lend them money? Taking a leisurely sip of tea, Tiu Hak explained, the great king said not to fight, because to make them less interested in the money in the bank. It's better to lend money at high interest. He had a disgusting smile on his face. Letting them work for us. This way they would have to work for at least 300 years. A cow and a lang kept their mouths shut. They were truly cruel capitalists. They couldn't say anything more. The leader didn't know if he was a debtor for 300 years or not. But right now he only cared about where the great king was. The brown hair said he didn't know. Probably in the room. Besides the room, where else could Chu Tiu Hong go? She sat sullenly like that for an unknown amount of time, because the queen did not expect that Zhang Si could change her appearance further. Back then, she quit smoking and attacked secretly. But it turned out that it was only a small part of Zhang Si's power. Seeing Zhang Si's new form as a god killer, the queen strongly admitted she couldn't defeat him in her whole life. So she ran away to a corner to shed these unwilling tears. But Zhang Tu didn't care much. He was still in his trademark clothes, looking down at the city from high above. Still underground, where there were not many people passing by. The coconut snout followed the map, leading Mr. Min to see the dry corpse that they had been looking for so long. Kiet Min stared at that thing, not knowing what was thinking in his dark brain. Only knowing that Kiet Min now had only one determination. Jiang too. Even if I die, I will not forgive him. Where are you? The familiar alarm bell of a new day rang nearby. But its owner raised his hand out of familiarity. And with just one hit, the watch broke into pieces. There was no sound in the large office until Jiang too, wearing a pink strawberry pizza suit, woke up. He went to open the refrigerator door, grabbed a raw egg and immediately put it in his mouth as breakfast. Completed. Suddenly I remember that old day. I don't know when I died. I only remember that it was a summer day when I was studying and turned into a zombie. Originally, Jiang Tu was just a very normal zombie. Wherever his kind ran, he followed it to survive and not be forced by humans to use it as lamp oil or make some kind of perpetual motion machine. Zhang Si began to exercise. Did not eat human flesh. Only smoked protein every day to survive. He finally succeeded and became invincible. In his trademark sportswear, in addition to appearing like a very normal zombie, he also has the appearance of the chap boy next door, or a high school student who specializes in playing games, or the six-pack man has had long hair since ancient times. In general, I have revealed all of Zhang Si's forms. I was fed up with war for peace and decided to help humanity. After endless efforts to help humanity solve problems, through the events of the New Corpse King and ancient humans, they changed their view on zombies. I finally have a city belonging to about yourself. The introduction sounded so coherent. But when he told it, Zhang Tu suddenly felt sweat pouring down his face. It seemed like he was too strong. Because of fear of him, humans ignored everything to love and destroy him. I just found out about that yesterday. Suddenly the doorbell rang. Jiang Tu shyly peeked out half of his face and saw the familiar head. It turned out that Tu Lang had just seen him and started to get angry. What are you doing? Is there a leader like that? Are you okay? I've been waiting for 2 hours. The door slammed shut right in front of her. Jiang Tu hurried inside. It took a while longer to get ready. Today is an important day, when all the famous characters gathered at the Extraordinary Academy to listen to Lan Kai's representative speech. We are living in a dangerous era. This era also gives us countless opportunities and challenges. This time Zhang Si will lead our academy to a prosperous future. He walked out from the backstage with a new name. Please, new minister. Your words were followed by a series of loud cheers from the crowd standing below. Hello, President. Then they all bowed at the same time to welcome Zhang Si. Now is the time for him to show his power by saying something that moves people's hearts. But this idiot just scratched his head and smiled. Good morning. Everyone is hungry. I brought eggs. The introduction was not like that of a normal person. But just like that, Zhang Tu replaced the previous leader to become the new president. As for the minister of Guangzhou province, he was sitting freely in his room, drinking a cup of coffee when the door was pushed open from the outside. Supervisor Tran had just jumped in and was in a hurry. Get out of the way. I have urgent business. In her hand she held a phone and said there was something big going on. It was the president calling. Supervisor Tran held out his phone with a brief announcement, causing the minister to immediately turn around and look. He picked up the phone and placed it on his handset and began to explain. I was planning to report to you. Before, everything happened so suddenly that I didn't have time to report it. There is absolutely no hiding it. I guarantee that I will complete Mr. President's orders. After hanging up the phone, Supervisor Tran eagerly asked from behind. What's wrong, Minister? It's an ancient human case. The whole world probably knows it. She stupidly wondered why we kept it so secret and yet it was still exposed. Placing the phone on the table, the minister said simply, how could you not know? Even the other hemisphere knows about such a big story. Taking out his phone, Supervisor Tran said that according to the Northern News, there had just been a fierce battle, and it seemed like ancient people had appeared. The minister pondered for a moment, and the exchange was about to start. A lot of things would happen at the same time. And where were the eggs I asked you to buy? Suddenly asked for 2 egg bags. Supervisor Tran picked them up with an uninterested look. Here, Taking 2 eggs from Supervisor Tran's hand, the minister went straight to Jiang-tu's house and City H stood hesitantly in front of the door for a long time, his head full of thoughts. If I let him do it, it is absolutely no problem for the chief minister to perform his duties. Feeling reassured, he raised his hand to press the doorbell. But unexpectedly, a very familiar face popped out. It was clear that she was a girl named Si Lang, but her clothes were like this. Her maid style with 2 cat ears and a plate of cakes in her hand. It was not like she was serving at a cafe. Damn, are you Tu Lang? The minister was startled and asked in disbelief. As for this style of dress, have the two of you already reached that step? She realized that her acquaintance was also screaming like a thief meeting his owner. The minister misunderstood. It's not what you think. From inside came Lan Kai's voice, looking much calmer. Oh hello, is that the minister? She also held 2 cakes in both hands, wearing a maid outfit in the style of a white rabbit, as if she was fighting in the clear sky through the minister's head. What are you guys doing? Even though Jiang-tu had just been promoted. But the girls blatantly played this game in front of me. I couldn't help but report it to my superiors. Lan Ky followed his words and looked down at the outfit she was wearing with suspicion. Only later did she realize what the minister was talking about. So she screamed in horror, looking no different from Tu Lang's. Just now, the minister quickly turned around to leave, and told me I had an emergency and had to go back to headquarters. 2 small children rushed outside to stop him quickly. The minister misunderstood. We were just celebrating that bastard's promotion. And why are you wearing this? Because you lost the game. The minister doesn't understand if you guys are intentionally dressing like this to attend the meeting or not. And I've never seen you guys dressed like that. With his face red, Tu Lang opened the door to the next room and invited him in to take a look. If he didn't believe it, the minister would go and see for himself. There was also a child named Hugh dressed like a maid. And Jiang-tu was drawing lots and lost heavily, her face covered in tape. Sitting opposite was the leader of the group of mechanical beings, who was trying hard to defeat him, but was immediately caught. As the loser, the stubborn group leader in the back even held up banners and fired off fireworks to congratulate him and all. Well, it turns out these 2 girls were telling the truth. Even though the minister knew the truth, he still didn't know what to say. When he looked at the kitchen, he was even more confused. A pile of vegetables flew up and heard a rustling sound in the air. They were sliced extremely beautifully and neatly like a genuine Japanese chef. And the person who created that work was Mak Hung, holding tightly the long sword he had just sheathed. The vegetables and fruits he cut neatly fell onto the white porcelain plate next to him. Just like that, Mak Hung was overjoyed, holding 2 plates in both hands, showing off to everyone. Here comes the sushi. At that moment, he felt someone at the door looking at him. Mak Hung glanced over and immediately saw the minister's helpless face, unable to say a word. He also had the same expression as the other 2 girls. Minister, it's not what you think. I'm not that type of person. Zhang Si forced me to do it. He had to clear his throat to avoid embarrassment and then talk about the main story. If everyone has heard, if there are enough people present, I won't have to call a meeting. I want to discuss urgent matters with everyone. Zhang Tu curled up and asked curiously. Who? Aren't you the leader of the humans? The minister replied no and thanked Mak Hung for bringing him a plate of thin iron meat. His left hand lifted the mask to reveal his mouth.